Early estimates for the price of cleanup run into the billions, with tens of thousands of homes and businesses damaged or destroyed. The timeline to rebuild likely to take months at the very least. The focus now shifting to how we can help those hurricane-ravaged communities. Joining us now, Florida Congressman Mike Waltz. He's a member of the House Armed Services Committee, also a former Green Beret. He also represents some of the counties that Ian really smacked. Congressman, what is the greatest need in your area right now, would you say?
Well, the area, my district is along the northeast coast of Florida, directly in the path, and really took a 1-2-3 punch between the river flooding, the just unprecedented amounts of rain, and then actually a storm surge on the east coast as well. So we've got sewage facilities that were overwhelmed and are backing up, roads that have been washed out, dunes that have been breached. But the biggest piece is just the historic levels of flooding, particularly in areas like Daytona, New Smyrna Beach, St. Augustine, areas and homeowners that never thought they were really at risk of being flooded. So a lot of them do not have flood insurance. They're sitting in knee-deep worth of water. And the concern is going to be over the next few days as mold, sewage, and other damage starts really setting in, that we're going to have a shelter crisis. These people just can't stay in those homes. We're going to have to get them out and get them sheltered while we get those homes remediated. And I think that's a number one priority for my district right now.
It's one thing to make it through the actual hurricane and you survive that and you think, wow, I'm okay. But then you've got days and even weeks with no power and maybe food that's spoiling in the fridge and no gasoline because the gas stations don't have power. It's pretty hard to maintain a standard of living in times like these.
No, that's right. And I'd add to that, we have an elderly population that may have medicines that have to stay refrigerated. We have high rises. We had one in Holly Hill, Florida today where the power was out, the elevators were out. And literally we had kind of a bucket brigade of people climbing the stairs, neighbors helping neighbors, taking them water and food and hooking up generators. But I do want to, John, thank the Biden administration for the major disaster declaration. That unlocks what we call individual assistance. It's up to $38,000 for immediate repairs and an additional $38,000 for property. What we're going to have to work with them on is what we call public assistance. This is a much broader piece. For example, you're going to the U.S. Department of Agriculture for all of our crops that were damaged, HUD for underprivileged areas, a small business association for our small businesses that will be losing revenue that we're just recovering from COVID, even the Corps of Engineers to check these bridges and roads to make sure there wasn't permanent structural damage. So that will be the long-term effort. And then dealing with FEMA to reimburse our locals who are paying for all of this right up front, our counties and our municipalities. That's where Congress, our senators, and our governor and state legislature really come in to work together.
Florida is a magnet state for Americans. You've got thousands of people moving in there, I think, every week. And for many of them, this is obviously their first hurricane. You mentioned the flood insurance situation. Only about 1 in 5 Floridians carries flood insurance, and it's the flooding, the storm surge, that does most of the damage in storms like these. A lot of people think, okay, the federal government is going to pay to rebuild my home, but that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's FEMA will provide those the assistance up to those certain levels. But that's where we may have that sheltering crisis that I've been telling you about. Is, as you know, before that mold sets in, you really need to get those walls out and air those homes out to try to prevent that. And frankly, a lot of folks are having a very difficult time psychologically, emotionally, kind of wrapping their minds around that their home, even though it withstood the wind and the rain and the hurricane, may be, frankly, ruined from the inside. And that's where we'll all have to come together as community, as neighbors, and get them all the assistance that we can.
And then there's the death toll, the number of dead, at least 30 people. Some estimates say as high as 50. Do you have any new information on that?
Well, I don't want to speculate, but from the reporting I'm seeing, there's requests have gone out for some additional what they call fatality search teams. Right now we are in, every minute counts in search and rescue but that at some point, we'll transition to a recovery effort. And I do sadly expect those casualties to rise. This was a devastating storm.
And it hit Florida in just the worst possible way, and could be one of the most, if not the most expensive disaster, the most expensive hurricane ever to hit the United States. Last word for you, Congressman. Anything you want to say before we say goodnight?
Our first responders, our National Guardsmen and women. Look, 1,200 Florida National Guardsmen just got back from overseas deployments. They barely got to say hello to their families, and they're back out, helping others. They all have families too. So do the first responders that had to take care of themselves. And we just can't give them enough gratitude as fellow Americans.
That is a very, very good point. Thanks for making it. Congressman Mike Waltz of Florida, the 6th District, thanks for being with us.